Okay, I'm André. I'm from UTFPR in Brazil. And the idea here today is to present about a topic called non-intrusive load monitoring. I'm going to use this short term NIUM during the presentation, so this is how I'm going to refer to this long sentence, non-intrusive load monitoring. So basically the idea, just let me check if I can move to the next. Yeah. So the idea is start with some general definitions about NIUM and other details that are related to this topic. The motivations behind NIUM and specific applications, some timeline, the evolution of this topic. And then the main core of the presentation is going to be about different approaches. I'm going to use this part here. Different approaches for NIUM. And I have here three different subdivisions. The first one is this called event-based. The second is state-based. And the third, some methods for specific problems. And then in the end, the perspectives and some ideas for future research in this field. I have here the presentation link with this QR code. I'm not sure if you have access to that one that we have sent before, but anyway, this is the link. And then most of the presentation requires some background in machine learning or deep learning, so there are some specific terms here about these two topics, so I'm sorry if you are not familiar with the field, but I will try to explain at least a bit about of each method as the presentation is going to develop. So, okay, first and the most important thing is to define what is the non-intrusive load monitoring. So we have an electrical system here, the standard electrical system. So we have the distribution networks here, almost in the end of the electrical system. And we have different buildings, houses, and the idea of this term called non-intrusive load monitoring, the non is the most important part of this definition here, is that we have a smart meter or some electrical meter. So we are measuring basically voltage and current, electrical power. And using this, only this measurement, normally outside the residence or outside the building, we try to infer the loads that are turned on and off in a given time window. So given this measurement here, electrical voltage and current, we try to infer the loads that are turned on, like these, and these, and turn it off in that period. So the term non-intrusive here is because we have this measurement outside the residence. If we are measuring inside the residence, we have what we call intrusive load monitoring. So that's one big difference, and this presentation is about one particular way of provide this analysis that is the non-intrusive way. Sometimes we need these measurements here, the intrusive measurements, that we call as sub-metering in this field. This is the name of this type of measurement. We use this measurement here just to build a data set, just to build a method that is capable of doing this type of disaggregation, the idea of having a waveform and then split into individual loads. So that's the second definition that is important for this presentation. Called actually energy disaggregation. So energy disaggregation is very close to the NIUM definition. And in energy disaggregation, this is another way of defining this problem. We have an aggregated current or electrical power, and then we try to, using some type of model. In this tutorial, I'm going to use basically machine learning and deep learning models. We try to split into individual loads. So we can, using this model, we can say that we have this load, and this load in this waveform. So this is the disaggregation that we provide in order to separate individual loads from mixed signal. Okay? So that's the idea. So there are basically there are two ways of solving this problem. The first one is using classification methods. So we use standard classification model to detect and classify each load. So in this signal, we can classify or detect this load, and this load. And if we approach this problem as a regression problem, then we can directly estimate the amount of power for each individual load. So giving this signal, we can estimate the amount of energy of this load, this, and this. The loads that are turned on, actually. So that's the idea. Okay, so these two definitions are important because I'm going to use them a lot during the presentation. So NUM, this is the idea of NUM, and energy disaggregation. Okay? So some motivations behind this topic. I will start with the motivation from the more like residential and commercial, but in the middle or maybe in the beginning of the presentation, I'm also going to present some motivations for industrial consumers. So starting with the residential and commercial, so from this reference here, is reference number 1. All those references are in the end of this presentation, so you can check them later. We can observe that about 40% of the global energy consumption are related to residential and commercial. And for this type of consumers, we can see that 80% of the consumers showed some interest in having this type of appliance-based segregation. So instead of having these mixed, this general electric consumption analysis, this type of appliance-based, this individual load consumption segregation is relevant for 80% of the consumers. And by using this type of individual information about each load inside a residence or a commercial building, we can actually provide some other important things like energy savings for the consumer, some individual analysis of the most critical loads in terms of consumption. And we also can provide a thing called demand-side management, in which we try to approximate the production and the consumption. And this is important for power utilities. So this is also a side product for this type of approach. And then there is a very recent study, this one here, that states that NUM can help reduce the energy consumption by 15%. So this number is, of course, based on several studies, but is a relevant number for that motivates this type of approach. So this is the motivation. We also have the motivation for industrial cases. I'm going to present those later. And then just to have an idea of the evolution of this field, everything started here in '92 with the first paper that introduced the term NUM by Hart this year, so it's a relatively recent topic. There were some relevant papers during the '90s, in the early 2000 here, 2007. Most of them are based on some initial ideas of how to extract information from signals in order to provide the disaggregation that I mentioned earlier. The first that used steady state from steady state signals and transient signals. Then the one called VI trajectory. This is a very relevant one. I'm going to detail the idea of this method later in the presentation. Then Coulter in 2010 introduced this sparse coding approach, which is a bit different from the ones that I'm going to present here, but is also a relevant paper. Then in 2014, the researchers the research mainly conducted by Batra provided the result of a toolkit for NIL. So it is a Python toolkit particularly designed for NIL. So this is a very relevant part of the research in NIL context. And from 2015, deep learning approaches emerged in several fields, particularly in computer vision. So it also started to motivate some researchers in the NIL context. So nowadays, basically, state-of-the-art NIL is based on deep learning. So those methods are the most important methods that I'm going to discuss here today. So this is just to have a general timeline and evolution of the field. And most of the details that I'm going to present here today, they are from this, basically this period, from 2015 to the most recent papers in the field. So, okay, in order to have a energy disaggregator or some kind of method that provides disaggregation, we need to first have access to data. So data is the first step for NIL. So before I present some of the most common public data sets that we have, I'm going to use a definition that is important for the NIL context in order to divide each type of data set that we have. So the first data set that we have is the low frequency data set. So this is the definition, the first definition, low frequency here. So normally the sampling frequency in those methods are in the order of hertz. So we have larger time windows for different loads as I'm presenting here. So we have cycles in the order of hours or even days. And then we can observe individual loads if we are performing disaggregation or the aggregated loads. But this is just to have an idea of those data sets. In terms of power, power is the most common input that we have in the NIL context. Of course, that if we are using low frequency data sets, we have a broader analysis of load profiles, as I'm showing here. We can observe more general cycles of each load. For instance, we have a television here, we have a washer here in specific periods of the day, and with very particular profile. And in the other hand, we have some limitations that some relevant features that we may have if we have a high frequency data set that I'm going to present in the sequence. We may lose information in this case because we lose transient analysis that may be relevant for some feature extraction. So the second type of data set that we have is the high frequency data set. So we increase the sampling frequency in order to kilohertz. Of course, we provide more details for features, particularly for transients, as we may observe here and here. So those transients, they characterize the behavior of each load. So they are relevant for the detection and the classification of that load. But on the other hand, we lose in terms of data collection. We don't have larger time windows. We normally have time windows in the order of seconds because the sampling frequency is in this range. So we lose the larger observation. So low frequency, we have a broader analysis. High frequency, we have more details, but more restricted time windows. And we have a third type of data set called synthetic data set. In this case, we try to, so in some cases, real data sets are very expensive. In NILM context, we need to collect data. I'm going to return to this slide here just to explain a bit better. In NILM, we need to record data in order to build a data set and construct and build a model. We need to collect data here, the aggregated data, and we need to collect data in the submitters in order to validate our disaggregation approaches. So this is very time-consuming. We need to label all the data. We need to organize all this data. So sometimes this is very complex, even for lower frequency data or low or high frequency data. And then there is this other approach called synthetic data, in which we use some type of controlled situation, as I'm presenting here. So we have loads that are real loads, but they are turned on and off in a very controlled and specific scenario. So it does not really correspond to a real residence, but it can provide some very similar load profiles for real data. And then we can use this type of synthetic data to maybe increase our data set or expand our data set or even build a full artificial data set. We can combine with simulation. We can combine with generative models. So for instance, we have these GANs models. This is one of the state-of-the-art deep learning models to generate data. So we have in this model, very, very shortly, we have a generator. So one part of the model that tries to generate fake samples. So this is very common in deep fakes and in all these state-of-the-art models. And we have a discriminator that tries to differentiate between real samples and the fake samples. And then we train the model. So we train the discriminator and the generator until the discriminator is not able to differentiate between a real and a fake sample during the training process of this model. So this type of model is very common for synthetic data. So we can generate artificial data. And in some cases, as presented in this very recent paper, we can have very almost I would say close to real conditions. So here we have the synthetic data generated by this type of model, GANs, trained with real data, of course. So we use real data here, and then we try to generate samples like these ones during the training process. And so this is the result of the training process. So we have, yeah, in some cases for this fridge, we have some very close waveforms. So washing machine. The real one is in red here, and the generated one is in blue on the right. We can have even cycles that are similar. For instance, in the microwave condition for a real and the generated one. So yeah, we can use this type of model to increase data set sizes and even build samples in cases where we have a limited amount of samples to train disaggregation models. So this is basically the three types of data sets that we have. So again, low frequency, high frequency, and synthetic with different approaches for synthetic data. And then we have publicly available data sets. So there are many efforts that people have been providing in this field in order to increase the amount of public data that we have. So public data set is important to train and build disaggregation models. So I'm going to return here just to explain a bit better this. So we have this model here that provides the disaggregation, so the model that is capable of segregate loads. So from an aggregate signal, the model provides the information of individual loads. So in order to train this model, in order to build this model, we need data. So we can use low frequency, high frequency, or even synthetic data to train the models. But the idea is to actually build those models. So there are publicly available data sets for that. This is the overview from 2011, the first public data set called RED. There are many different data sets for residential and commercial buildings. Some of them are low frequency in blue, some of them are high frequency, some of them have both signals. These are the typical loads that we have for residential cases and commercial cases. You can check this reference later because this is one of the most recent ones for data set analysis. And then there are many details about these loads in that reference. But this is just to show you some general idea of the field in terms of data sets that we have. This is not the most updated version because from 2020 we also have some other data sets, but they are more focused on industrial cases. So the industrial cases I'm going to detail later. So yeah, these are the data sets. So in terms of the details of those data sets. So these are the names of the data sets, year, but there are some important things here that I would like to emphasize that as we can observe, we have, in terms of number of appliances that we have for each data set. So if we are solving this problem as a classification problem, these are actually the number of classes that we have that we want to recognize. So as we can observe, there are just a few data sets that have a relatively huge amount of appliances, but most of them are very reduced in terms of this number of classes. So this is a problem for real applications in which we have we may have a larger number of appliances. This is the period. Some of them have a larger period of data acquisition, and others are very restricted. Some of them are low frequency data sets, others are high frequency. Yeah, but this is the feature of each data set. There are some data sets that provide data acquisition for different buildings. This one is very relevant. But there are some problems here that I'm going to detail in the sequence. Okay, so these are the data sets that we have. And in the industrial context, this is a bit different. So when we talk about NUM in terms of residential and commercial buildings, the main idea is to provide some type of, as I said before, energy-aware about the consumption inside a residence. So that's the main idea of the motivation behind NUM for residential and commercial. But in the context of industrial cases, we have other motivations. So we have management motivations, for instance, things like load shifting, peak shaving, demand response, as I said before. Those are the applications that can be performed when you have also a NUM device operating inside a industrial facility. So management is one important thing, and maintenance is another one. So this is a very recent and hot topic for research. So we can use NUM to provide some state monitoring, identify faults, identify unusual cycles for different loads inside an industry. So when we use NUM in industry context, we can extend the motivations for other things that are also relatively relevant for industrial scenario. So since we have this motivation, people have been putting a lot of effort in order to collect data in the industrial cases. So there are some publicly available data sets in the in industry. Most of them have these typical loads, basically fans, pumps, different types of pumps, boilers, refrigeration cells. So those are the most common types of loads, and the idea is pretty much the same. So we have an aggregated signal here, and we try to split into individual loads using a new method or a disaggregation method. So in terms of data sets, this is what we have for publicly available industrial data sets. So it's a very reduced number of data sets. We have actually only 6. Most of them has a very limited number of loads, with the exception of this one, but this also has some problems. These two are high frequency. I'm going to detail the problems later for all the data sets, just to have a general analysis. And we have 2 high frequency and 3 low frequency data sets, but this is all that we have in terms of public data sets. So this is for the industrial context. So again, just to show you, this is what we have for residential and commercial. We have much more information in this case, and this is for the industrial case. So this reference provides a very recent analysis about industrial data sets, but this is the general overview that we can have from that reference in terms of features for each data set. Okay, so in terms of analysis, so I will try to summarize all the important things that we have for these data sets. So the first one is that only few data sets include industrial devices. So industrial applications for NUM is one hot topic. So it's one of the most important topics that we have in this field in terms of data. The second problem that we have in most data sets, so we have in this data set called data port with this number of appliances here. And we also have in this data set, which one? This one, whited. It is a high frequency data set for industrial cases. So for those data sets, actually this happens in many data sets, but those are the most important ones. We have missing data. So we have the aggregated signal, but we don't have the sub-meter information. So with this type of limitation, it's harder to achieve or train a model with this type of problem. So many data sets present missing data. So this is one of the things that are important to consider. There are ways that we can use to mitigate or reduce the impact of these missing data condition, but it is present in those data sets. The variety of the appliances is also a relevant aspect. There are data sets that have many appliances, as this one, but most of the appliances are basically the same type of loads. So they are basically washing machines of the same power, very similar, so we don't have a variety in terms of number of appliances. And this is a limitation, it is a very important limitation. And most of the data sets provide information for a small subset of countries. So basically Europe and US are the countries that provide these public information. So this is also a limitation that we observe in public data sets. So this is a type of general analysis of data set, and sometimes and somehow we can use this as a motivation for future research as well. So in terms of approaches, so as I said before, I'm going to detail 3 types of approaches, disaggregation and new approaches here. The first one is what people define as event-based, the first group of methods. The second one is the state-based. And the third one is, I define it here as for specific problems. So I will start with this event-based, then I'm going to detail state-based, and then the third group called specific problems. So there are advantages and limitations of each approach. This reference here discusses a lot about these limitations, but as I detail each approach, I'm going to talk about the limitations and advantages of each method. So starting with this event-based approach, so I will consider in this first moment a classification problem. So a problem in which I will try to identify each load. So I will try to detect and identify each load in a waveform. So I will explain the approaches using a classification problem because I think it's easier to understand. But the general idea extends to the regression problem, in which we try to estimate the amount of energy, the amount of power. So it's basically the same. So we start with an input signal here, a waveform, in this case a high frequency data set, electrical current, but it could be electrical power. In the first stage of this process, we detect an event. So in this case, we detect when a load is turned on or off. So we need to detect this instant, this sample, or the time that the load is turned on or off. Then we extract a small part of the waveform, like this, that I have here. It's just an example. And then we extract features from that waveform. So we can use VI trajectories, we can use wavelets. I'm going to detail some of these standard features. And then using these features, we can perform the classification. We can detect, we can actually classify for that time the type of load that is turned on or off. So this is the event, as detailed here, the event-based approach. Okay. So just to have a bit more about the details of each stage, we will start with the event detection. So in terms of event detection, we have methods that are designed for low frequency, like this one. So we normally use state-of-the-art signal processing methods that perform some type of relative variation analysis. So we analyze the variation between two different instants. And then if we have some relevant relative variation, we assign that a sample as a sample that may has an event. Something is happening here. So that's the idea. So we can use these very classical approaches for this type of solution. There are some limitations. We may have different types of loads that have different transients or states between on and off. So for instance, we may have some AC that has this type of different stages until it reaches the next stage, the full power stage. So the event detection must consider all these variations in order to assign this part as the off event and that part as the on event. We may have also some very small variations, and the event detection may detect several events in this period, but we are interested normally in this period and that one. So the method must consider all these specific transitions that we may have. So this is also important. And this is also a thing that normally requires to extend this type of classical approach to more specific approaches. So some of them are discussed in this reference here. And of course, we have similar problems in high frequency. So in high frequency, this is a much more complex situation. So we have, in high frequency signals, we can have very, very clear transients as this one. And then we can detect this, turn on event here. But we may have some noisy signals as this one. And we may have a very small variation in terms of power for this type of signal, and we may have a larger variation for others. So this range is also a difficult thing to deal when you try to detect transients. Also in high frequency, we have different states that are important for feature extraction. So we need to detect the initial transient, the end of the transient, and also the steady state, because each part of the signal can provide different information for feature extraction. So all these things are relevant. So people normally use also state-of-the-art signal processing approaches to detect this variation, but this is a very, very complex process. So event detection is actually a point that is forcing people to use more state-based approaches, the second approach that I'm going to present. So event detection is a very complex problem, particularly when you have many loads that are turned on and off during time. So you may have different powers and different transients. So yeah, this is very complex. So in the sequence, after we perform the detection, we can extract features. So as I said before, we have different features. So this is a general overview of the features that we have. So we can extract steady state features, transient features. Also, people use non-traditional features. So basically, if we use steady state, we can extract some type of power factor, the VI trajectory that I'm going to detail in the sequence. In the transient, we normally use like wavelet transforms, so some type of time frequency transforms. And non-traditional features include things like, for instance, appliance usage frequency, light sensing, and temperatures, and yeah, there are many things here. This is just a general overview of the features. So just to detail some of them that are very recurrent in the new area. The first one is VI trajectory. So the idea of the VI trajectory is to extract one cycle of the voltage. So we take one cycle of the voltage and one cycle of the same cycle of the current. And then we have a plot like this. So in the x-axis we have the current, and the y-axis the voltage, and we have this plot. And then each type of load has a particular VI trajectory graph. So this first load here, we have this shape. For other types of loads, we have other types of shapes. Each one has a particular feature, and then using this plot, using this graph here, we can extract different features from these graphs. Things like area, the curvature of the mean line of this trajectory. There are many other features. People have been proposing different features for these type of signals, but VI trajectory is a very relevant way of characterize loads in terms of a visual interpretation. Okay, so the second very recurrent feature extraction method is time frequency representation. So we can use wavelets or other time frequency methods to build plots like these. So for each type of load, we have different representation in terms of time and frequency, different energy distribution. So for AC here, we have this distribution. For lamps, we have a different distribution in terms of the amount of energy. So the yellow and blue representation here is the amount of energy that we have in different frequency ranges. So microwaves and washing machines, and we can use this information here to classify, to detect a particular load using these features. Okay, so just to show you two of the most traditional feature extraction methods. And then the final stage is the classification. So if we intend to classify loads, so we can use standard classifiers, machine learning classifiers. If we intend to provide the amount of energy of each load, we can use a regressor, state-of-the-art regression method. So yeah, that's the idea. And then here there are some very, very general comparison between supervised approaches in cases where we have label data for aggregated and individual loads. So if we have all the information, we can build a supervised approach. In cases in which we have only partial label data, so we may have label data for some loads or some small amount of all the waveforms that we have, then we can use semi-supervised approaches. And in cases in which we don't have labels in any case, so we can use, of course, unsupervised approaches. There are some advantages and disadvantages of each approach. This reference here also discusses a lot about the details. So I'm not going to detail them, but this is just to show you that we have these three possible ways of solving this problem. In terms of metrics that we can use, so this is just to detail one thing that is unusual in the NUM area. So if we are using a classification method, so in this first case here, so if we use a classifier, then of course we can use classification metrics to provide some comparison in terms of accuracy, F1 score, or confusion matrix. This is very specific for machine learning, but this is the type of metrics that we can use. If we are trying to solve our problem as a regression problem, in terms of energy estimation or power estimation, of course, we can use regression metrics, mean absolute error, the RMS, and other types of standard metrics. But this third one here, this third part, this is very important because there are some researchers that have been trying to introduce new and specific metrics for the NUM context. So they provide some things like they call total energy correctly assigned. So in this case, this is a very similar of with these energies of interest, EOI. These metrics, they try to incorporate a few more things than just the error in terms of regression or classification. And they provide also information about some overlapping, missing, some extra energy if you are estimating some extra energy, or if you are estimating the energy below the desired amount of energy. So in these cases, in this particular metrics, you can extract more information than just the error. So of course, you have to read and understand the details of those metrics because they are very detailed. But in this reference here, this reference number 20, there are the details of and a comparison of all those approaches and cases in which it's better to use these specific metrics instead of the standard regression and classification. So this is just a remark because in this field there are some specific metrics that are important. So if you are working with these approaches, it's important to be aware of that. So okay, so I'm still in the context of event-based approaches. So I'm still in this case here. So I have the detection, the feature extraction, and the classification or regression. But now instead of using this three-part approach in which we have the detection, the feature extraction, and then the classification, I'm going to move to another way of solving this problem using deep learning approaches. So in deep learning, basically, we have end-to-end applications, end-to-end methods. So we have an input signal. So we have this current or electrical power. Then we have a model that provides everything. It provides the detection, it provides the classification, and also it can provide the regression, the amount of power that we have for each load. So everything is integrated in one single model. Okay? So there are some event-based methods that use deep learning approaches. So one of them is this deep DFML. So this method is based on the YOLO model. YOLO is a very common method in computer vision. The idea of this model is to provide some real-time object detection. So we have an image, and then in that image, the model provides two things. So it provides this bounding box here, this yellow bounding box, this red one, and the other yellow. It is a regression problem in the sense that we are trying to estimate the size of the bounding box and the location of the bounding box in the image. So we can have different sizes for that bounding box, and we can have different locations in the image. So in terms of number of pixels, this is a regression problem because we are trying to estimate the bounding box, basically. And for each bounding box, we estimate the class. So it is also a classification problem. So we estimate two things, the bounding box and the label for that bounding box. So that's the idea of that model that is basically a computer vision model. So based on this idea, the authors in this paper proposed this deep DFML. So the idea is to use a fully convolutional model in which we have basically the aggregated signal here. And then by using different layers and different operations, we extract different features. These features are learned by the model. So it's a different way of build features. And then the model in the end provides basically the same thing. Here we have the bounding box and the label. So in this case, in the NUM context, the bounding box is basically the sample that we have an event, so it is a detection. And the classification is basically the load that we have. And there are also some variations here that include another part for this network that provides the amount of energy of that particular load. So using one model, we can actually provide everything from detection to classification and regression. In this case, the features are normally not interpretable, so we don't have like VI trajectories or wavelet features. We have features that deep learning models normally extract that are not normally interpretable. So this is a very good model in terms of estimation. This is just one example of the regression, the estimation of the detection and the classification here, just to have an idea. So it is a good model, but it depends on very large data sets. So the authors proposed a data augmentation process to increase the data set and obtain this performance. So this is a limitation of this type of approach. And in this more recent paper, other authors modified the deep DFML. So they modified this model here by replacing all these layers that are convolutional layers, basically. But we have parameters that we need to train during the training process. They have replaced these parameters here by a wavelet scattering. This wavelet scattering here. And the difference between a convolutional model and a wavelet scattering model is that in the wavelet scattering, we don't need to train the coefficients. They are analytically determined. So we can use these coefficients in this part here instead of using convolutional learnable parameters. And then we can reduce the number of parameters that we need to train. And of course, reduce the amount of data. So wavelet scattering is a very recent approach. People have been using in other fields, and NUM is one of them. So the consequence of this replacement is that, just to have a conclusion about this thing here, is that with reduced, actually without using the data augmentation, we can have a similar performance in terms of classification here. So we have basically the same performance, but without data augmentation. So it requires less data. So that's the idea of using these wavelet scattering coefficients. The authors also detail one thing that is important, that normally when you try to build a new model, you do not consider distributed generation. So for instance, if you have a photovoltaic system inside a residence, it can modify the behavior of the loads during the operation of the distribution system. So the photovoltaic system, sorry. So the authors also have provided in this other reference here some analysis. So they also use all this wavelet scattering thing, but they provided a very not well explored analysis in the literature in cases where we have this type of situation. So basically the distributed generation can degrade the performance of NUM systems. And this is a very important conclusion and underexplored in the literature. So yeah, this is important to mention here because it's a relevant result. So okay, in the sequence, so the first model that uses deep learning approaches, a deep learning approach that I presented is this deep DFML. This is the first one, and it is based on this computer vision model. There is another model that is based on a computer vision approach. It is a different approach called semantic segmentation. So in computer vision, when we provide semantic segmentation, the idea is to classify each pixel of the image. So each pixel will have a classification. So in the end, we don't have the bounding box that I presented earlier. We have a classification for each pixel in the image. So the output of the process is this one. So there are some other researchers that using this idea and the state of the art, at least it was the state of the art in 2015 for semantic segmentation, this UNet. It is a convolutional architecture with this U structure here because it has a kind of a multi-scale feature extraction. I'm not going to detail. This is it is presented in this reference here. But yeah, using this type of semantic segmentation model for computer vision tasks, they modify and use it in the NUM context using the same U shape. And then the output of the model is basically the amount of power that we have and also if the load is turned on or off. It's basically the same result that we have for other models. This is just to show you that we have different ways of using deep learning models in the NUM context. So all those methods that I've presented so far, they are event-based, so they need an event detection. And now I'm going to detail the state-based approaches. So they are a bit different. Basically, the idea is to use as an input signal the aggregated signal, and then using that model, we can provide the disaggregation. So we don't actually consider the detection of an event. So the event detection is not required here, but we have a limited time window in which we have our input, and then we provide, the model provides the disaggregation, and the disaggregation is the same time window. So the first paper that provided this type of idea was Kelly in 2015 with the LSTM model, a very famous model in the deep learning field. So the authors provided some results, but they were not actually, how can I say, good results. This is not a good word, but yeah. This is just one example of the results that this paper provided. So as we can observe here, the ground truth, the real load is in blue, and the orange is in the orange is the estimated load. So there are very, very bad results as this one. And then another author in 2018 provided a different interpretation. So instead of using this full window here, the authors modified the idea of estimating instead of the full window, just the midpoint, and then they have some type of time procedure to always estimate only the midpoint. So the output is just 1 point. And then using that, they can increase the results, as we can observe here. This is the sequence to point model. This is a very common term in NUM. And the previous one is the sequence to sequence model. So using the sequence to point, we can increase the results. And then there are many other works that use this type of approach. This is just one example of the estimated, this is the input signal, the blue one. The output is just 1 point for one time window. Then, of course, we can have a different time window for each time step, and then estimate one midpoint for each time step, so we can cover all the signal using that approach. But yeah, this is the result that we have. And also, this model also has some interpretable features, so this is also very interesting for this reference. But using this idea, we have many modifications of this sequence to point model. So, for instance, if we use this dilated convolution, this is a very specific term in deep learning field. It's a different way of using a convolution. So I'm not going to detail because this is, as I said, a very specific type of operation. But if we modify the sequence to point model by using this dilated convolution, which provides a more general view of the signals, we can increase a bit more the result. So this is the real data. So this is the ground truth that we have. This is the result for the previous sequence to point model. And if we include this dilated convolution, then we can have this pink model here, the result for this paper. So using the dilated convolution, we can increase the results a bit more. And then the authors have been exploring these variations. This is very common in the deep learning field. So for instance, people use this BERT model. BERT is a natural language processing model. So using BERT, which has basically two things that are very relevant for the BERT model, which is based on the transformer model, a very common model in deep learning, which is the attention mechanism and the positional encoding. So it has these two features. So the attention mechanism provides different degrees of attention for different things in a sentence for the natural language processing case. So we may have high attention for things that are related, like this eating an apple here. Low attention for things that are maybe unrelated. This is for instance, a sentence, a natural language processing case. This is the case for an image. So different attention filters may provide some different attentions for different parts of the image. And of course, we can have this type of attention model for a NUM signal. And also, there is a thing called positional encoding in order to, that provides some type of encoding that, of course, encodes information for long sentences. So this is one of the things that is an original thing for the transformers and the BERT model. So by using these two things, I'm going faster right now in this case. So by using this attention mechanism and using this positional encoding, the authors in this paper, and also using this sequence to point model and all the idea, they can provide better final results in terms of estimation. And then, if we try to mix the UNet approach with this BERT model, the transformer model, in a way that we include a transformer model here in the middle of the U-shaped model, then we can increase a bit more the results, and then we can have more better. This is actually the state-of-the-art result for this type of low-frequency signals in NUM context. So we can provide better results in this case. So yeah, this is just to show you that if we have different deep learning methods, we can use them in terms of a NUM, and then we can increase the results, the final results for the estimations. Yeah, but this is just to show you the ideas. Okay, so the first part of this presentation was when I discussed about approaches. The first part was event-based. The second one is the state-based. And now I have some specific approaches for some specific problems in terms of NUM issues. So the first one is what we called in pattern recognition as open set recognition. So open set recognition is a different approach compared to multi-class classification. So in terms of, if we have a multi-class classification, all the features that we have that are here, or even here, they are classified as this class, the same for this case, and the same for this case. So in the open set recognition, we have this closed boundary around each class. So we have this assumption. We have a closed boundary around each class. And then things that are here, for instance, they are classified as unknown. So it does not correspond to any of the previously defined class. This may be a new class, in our case, a new appliance. Or this can be even an outlier. So the idea in this case is to use this open set recognition approach. So we can, in this case, detect new loads that are connected after the training procedure. So this paper proposed the idea of using this this open set recognition approach. So they have a very complex architecture, so they combine VI trajectories with wavelet features and several layers of this deep learning ideas. So this is a very complex architecture, so it's hard to detail here, but in the end, the authors showed that for some data sets, some public data sets, we can have state-of-the-art results for the multi-class classification for this task, and also recognize new loads or unknown loads with almost the same results, so above 95%. So this is just to show you that this type of open set recognition approach is possible in terms of NUM. Okay, so also a very recent paper. And if we include incremental learning, so if we include a thing called incremental learning, so what is incremental learning? So we start with a model called model 0 here, and as we observe new classes, so this model must have an open set recognition. It must be an open set recognition model. So since the model detects, or once it detects new classes, so we can include these new classes in this model 0, and then we can have this model 1. So we increase the model. So incremental learning is basically this type of approach. So we have new classes, then we have an initial model, then we combine these new classes with this initial model, and then we increase the model. In our case, if we have new appliances, then we increase our model with these new appliances by actually increasing the learning process only for the new classes. So we use the previous model, so we keep the previous model and then include these new classes, and then we can have this larger model. So using this incremental learning procedure, this is actually a thing that is happening a long time. We can also include new appliances in our context. So also a very recent paper using this incremental approach in the NUM context. And there is one important result in this paper that shows if we do not use this incremental learning approach, as we include new classes, of course, our performances for the non-incremental learning model decreases a lot. Of course, this is a thing that is natural. But if we consider this incremental learning approach, so the authors propose this also, again, complex architecture, but if we include this incremental approach, as we increase the number of classes, we, of course, can keep almost the same performance. Yeah, it has a very small reduction here, but we can maintain the performance and also include new appliances in the recognition process in the new context. So yeah, this is a recent topic in pattern recognition, and of course this is also a recent topic in NUM. This is a very, very recent paper. There is also another thing called domain adaptation. This is also from machine learning pattern recognition. Domain adaptation, the idea is that we have a source domain. Source domain, normally we don't have labeled data or we don't have real data. So in this case, we have images that we are generating using, for instance, a 3D model. And then we have the target domain in which we have real data. So we use the source domain. We use the source domain to start or to build a initial model. And as we receive information from the target domain, from the real world, we can include those examples in our model, but we don't need we don't need to have a huge amount of this target domain. With a small subsample of this target domain, we can actually provide some training in this case and have some relevant results. So by using this type of approach in the NUM context, we can reduce actually the amount of labeled data. So in the NUM context, the target domain is data without label. So we don't have label, we don't have the disaggregated information for this case, for these signals. And the source domain we have labeled. And the authors show that in this case, in this paper here, if we use a small amount of data, of labeled data, for instance, this is not the most appropriate result here, but they show that if we use just a small amount of data, of labeled data, we can achieve almost the same performance that we have without, almost the same performance that we have with all the data that we have labeled. So by reducing the amount of labeled data and using this domain adaptation approach, in this case, the domain adaptation, it tries to approximate the features that we learn for the labeled and the unlabeled data. So yeah, these details are actually are presented in the paper. So it's important to check the paper to understand the effect of this domain adaptation loss. But by using this approach, we can reduce the amount of labeled data that is required for to achieve, I would say, state-of-the-art results that use only labeled data. So in the end, the conclusion for this paper is that using this approach, you can reduce the amount of labeled data for the training process. Okay? So the amount depends on the data set, so yeah, you can check the paper to see the details. Okay, so yeah, I'm in the end of the presentation here. We'll try to go fast in these last slides because we have only 15 minutes here and then we need some time for the questions. But yeah, some final remarks and some challenges that we still have in this field that are maybe relevant for future research in this topic. So the first one is there are some, from this reference here, so there are some indications that an acceptable user experience requires an accuracy of around 80% to 90%. This is a good accuracy for a real NUM device. But the thing is that we only have this performance in papers. In real cases, we are pretty far from this result. We are not even in 50%. People are reporting this type of result. So we are still very far from a desired accuracy for real applications. Also, most of the current approaches for NUM devices, they require a lot of effort in data acquiring process and the training process for the system. So the user must collect some data in some specific scenarios in order to train the model. So this is also a limitation for real applications. We need to reduce the amount of effort in that case. Of course, the system should be able to detect new unseen devices, appliances. So open set recognition and incremental learning is a required thing for NUM. So this is a very, very important thing. In terms of scalability, the real applications are limited to 15 devices. So we are still very far from numbers as 40 or 50, which are some of the desired numbers for real cases. So this is the conclusion for real NUM devices. So not for papers, just for real cases. Another remark here, there is a lack of publications in unsupervised approaches. So unsupervised is also a hot topic for research. The generalization ability is also a limitation. So there are some cases that provide good results for one house, but if you try to use the same model for another house, the performance decreases a lot. So the generalization is also an important thing. We don't have, as we have in computer vision, for instance, pre-trained models that you can use pre-trained models for other buildings or other countries or other data sets and use these pre-trained models. This is very common in computer vision and it is not usual in NUM, so it would be a good thing to do. Edge devices, so we have as I presented here today, we have very complex models with very complex architectures in terms of deep learning architectures. And if we are considering devices that are on the edge to operate inside a residence, for instance, then we need to reduce the complexity of those models because on the edge we have a reduced computational effort. So it's a bit complex to to include complex models. Those are the conclusions from those references. Rafik also has some concerns about things related to same type of appliances inside the residence. Do we need to differentiate between same type of appliances? Is it a relevant thing or not? So there are some concerns about this. Maybe this is a good topic for research. The user's feedback. Most of the methods do not consider user feedback. Explainability, so deep learning in terms of features. Normally we don't have interpretable features. So a good thing to do would be to have explainability for models. So this is also a relevant thing. Yeah, Dash presented other things here, but I guess most of them I have already covered before in terms of details. Okay, so yeah, I have here some of the things that I have from my perspective in this field. So one thing that I've been observing in papers is that accuracies are normally above 90–95% for most typical data sets, public data sets. But in practical cases, we are still very, very far from that. So I would recommend in this context that the baseline experiments in the papers, they should be more complex in terms that we must present experiments in terms of cross data sets. So if you have an experiment with a result for one data set, try to evaluate the same model for other data set with that with the model trained in the first data set. So this type of cross experiments are very relevant. It's important to check the robustness of the model that you are trying to propose in terms of new loads. Computational complexity is also very relevant because the edge thing is important for NUM, so yeah, this is also relevant. Of course, more appliances, extend the number of appliances is relevant. And incremental learning is very, very underexplored, so this is a hot topic. Incremental learning with unlabeled data is also totally unexplored in the literature. Things like few-shot learning, which is common in computer vision, could be used here too. Yeah, experiments with massive data sets in terms of open set recognition with several unknown loads. This would be a good thing to do. Yeah, multimodality is the hot term, hot topic for many deep learning approaches. So this could also be used in the NUM context. So we could combine some power data with contextual data, such as user behavior, environmental factors, or like smartwatches, I don't know. So we could use this type of mixing information for NUM. Also, things like NLP could be used in the NUM context. So I've been discussing applications with some colleagues in terms of having an aggregated signal like this one, and then use a model to provide something like a description of that, the thing that is happening inside the residence in terms of natural language processing. So there are some recent applications that use this type of multimodal approach. So this could also be a topic for future research in the field. So yeah, here I have some first steps with NUM. If you are new in this field, I would recommend the NUM toolkit to start. The first one that I used in the beginning of the presentation. So this is the very first steps in NUM. If you are already familiar with the field, so there is another GitHub that is very well updated with all these deep learning methods. This is very good way of selecting recent models and evaluate models with data sets and so on. So first steps, NUM toolkit. If you have some knowledge, this is a good reference. And yeah, all the references that I used during the presentation are here. And sorry for the time. We are almost approaching 5 p.m. so we can move to the questions. And thank you for your attention.